For this video, we're leaving all baggage behind. That's because we're here to objectively assess the latest version of the world's most popular, nay, history's most popular ever EV, the Tesla Model Y, as well as one of its fiercest competitors, the new Kia EV5. Though both are made in China, one is an American with a facelift and the other is an all-new model from Korea, and both are being tested for what they are, not who or what they represent. My name is Byron Mathioudakis for CarsGuide.com.au, and I'm here to help you make a more informed decision on what is a better mid-sized EV family SUV. Now, I know what you're thinking. We couldn't have assembled two more different rivals, except that these are more similar than you think, beginning with pricing. The basic Kia EV5 Air two-wheel drive kicks things off from a sharp $56,770 before on road costs, which is about $2,000 under the entry-level Tesla Model Y rear-wheel drive from $58,900. But since we've been running an EV5 GT line all-wheel drive long-termer from around $72,000, we naturally requested the Model Y long-range all-wheel drive equivalent from about $70,000 to even things up. However, we ended up with a base Tesla rear-wheel drive instead. So just the one motor versus the Kia's two-wheel drive versus all-wheel drive, and a near 40% smaller battery for 466 kilometers of WLTP range. Yet the Kia makes less power regardless, while its 300 extra kilos and drag from having two motors plus all-wheel drive provides just 4 kilometers of extra distance, proving yet again that less is more in most, if not in all, EVs. Things even out even more because our particular Model Y rear-wheel drive has options that puts it within $4,000 of our EV5 GT line, including a $5,100 enhanced autopilot option that adds basically hands-free adaptive cruise control driving in certain motorway conditions, among other features. We're talking semi-self-driving tech here, folks. The standard features roll call on both is pretty extensive, with artificial leather, powered, heated and ventilated front seats, a heated steering wheel, reclining rear backrests, a power tailgate, and a long list of advanced driver assist safety gear. However, there are unique differences and anomalies as well. Only the Model Y offers a rear seat touchscreen for multimedia, climate and even gaming controls, dog as well as camp modes for in-car pet or occupant ventilation when parked, powered folding and unfolding rear seats, its Sentry dashcam and perimeter recording security system, and available semi-self-driving tech. Most are famous Tesla features and all have merit. Infamously though, there is no Apple CarPlay, nor Android Auto, nor a sunblock blind for the fixed glass roof, nor remote central locking without a fiddly phone app, nor an instrumentation cluster, nor a head-up display, nor vehicle to load to power external devices, and not even a physical gear lever. Of course, our EV5's got them, along with heated/cooled storage, massaging front seats, an augmented reality head-up display, remote control parking, and nearly double the Y's warranty, though only the latter avoids seeming gimmicky, frankly. For 2025, the Model Y brings more streamlined styling, profound chassis upgrades, and a stronger body, among other things. Inside it gains high quality trim, additional sound deadening, reshaped seats, updated multimedia, and, very importantly for sustaining range, a heat pump to improve climate control efficiency, something that the Kia lacks. Meanwhile, the EV5 is actually a joint venture with China's Jiangsu Yuata, which also builds it. In fact, this Kia is largely unrelated to the highly acclaimed EV3, EV6 and EV9 SUVs that flank it. Not that you'd know this from looking at the cookie cutter styling. And could these SUVs look more different? Tesla reckons that this is an all-new design, but in reality the Model Y Juniper is a heavy facelift of the model that we first saw in the late 2010s. And I think that shows because even though it's got this Cybertruck style lighting element up front, it is still a curvy, dated silhouette. admittedly one that has aged well over the years, and for 2025 it's slightly longer than before, and it still has a longer wheelbase than its competitor here, the Kia EV5. Now obviously the Tesla is more aerodynamic than this boxy thing, but let me tell you, this isn't too bad in the aero department, because it still is fairly slippery and therefore efficient, and that's what you want in an EV. Now, the boxy form is a lot more contemporary. It name checks, of course, the classic EV9 EV, that full-size EV, which remains one of our favorites, as well as the brilliant new EV3. So that family resemblance is very much there. And to my eyes, it's the more contemporary and fresh look compared to the Tesla. What do you reckon? One of the EV5's biggest strengths is just how familiar it is in here. So even if you're not familiar at all with EVs, you can jump in this car and it will feel just like a petrol engine version in the way that its controls and its layout are presented. So regular steering wheel, a regular instrumentation pod in front of you, so you know, speed, fuel, all that sort of stuff. It's right there, right ahead. And actual physical buttons. I love that. After a stint in the Tesla, you crave to be able to just feel your way around while you're driving without having to take your eyes off the road. There's a head-up display as well as the instrumentation, so that's a double bonus, as well as Apple CarPlay. You get Apple CarPlay and Android Auto wirelessly in the Kia EV5. Now, Kia's has gone to some lengths to give this car a bit of personality in here, and I'll point out a couple of things. There are minor things like a takeaway hook here for your curries and that sort of thing. But more strangely is this double front seat set up for the passenger. So it's kind of like 1.5 seats, and you would imagine it would be a center seat with a seatbelt, but it's not. Well, certainly not in Australia anyway. So it's got this kind of weird little pocket thing here that I suppose you can hide a phone in. But other than that, it seems to just waste space, I think. The seats aren't quite as comfortable over a stint compared to the Tesla, I've got to say. The front seats I'm talking about, but they're good enough. And in this GT line, you get this kind of two-tone effect, which is smart, although this really does feel like vinyl. A lot of artificial leather nowadays does have a more natural feel. This just feels like fancy plastic. Great amount of space, an excellent driving position, excellent vision, it's all there. Kids and adults alike will find plenty to enjoy in the EV5. Starting with really easy entry and egress. Look at that. And this is me sitting behind me with all this space, so that's awesome. Deep windows, plenty of USB ports, including one here and here on the side, your typical armrest with cup holders, and a couple of exclusive items, I think. Airline style tray for all those takeaway on-the-go snacks, and a drawer that is both a heater and a chiller, so you can keep stuff cold or hot as required. Face level air vents, this panoramic sunroof that opens, lighting, overhead grab handles, that sort of thing. Kia's got you covered, and the backrests even recline. The EV5 boot has some good points and some bad points. The bad points are there's no parcel shelf at all available as standard anyway, which means that it allows a lot of noise to come through, and we'll talk about that more a little bit later on. And of course, it's nowhere near as voluminous as the Model Ys, but it does have some interesting features. For example, I've never seen this in a car before. A cantilevered floor access thingo. So that gives you access to the tyre mobility kit, which unfortunately means that you do not get a spare tyre in either of these cars, and that's just not good enough for Australia, as well as various other charging related items that you can store down here. There is a regular 12-volt socket for you to power things, as well as some wet storage capability back here. It's not very big, but it's practical. And unlike the Tesla, you can probably wheel a large washing machine back here because there's enough roof height as opposed to the more sloping silhouette of the Model Y. Right, the EV5's front bonnet is smaller than the Tesla's, which is a bit of a surprise given that this has a much larger and blockier frontal area. However, when you realize that there's also a electric motor floating around in here, that starts to make sense. At any rate, it is smaller, but it's still handy enough for at least a couple of backpacks. These frameless doors are a portent to what awaits the Model Y driver, because when you step inside, this is quite a low-slung mid-size SUV in terms of its sloping roof and just its general kind of sporty car personality. I don't know where to begin here, because we've got to blame Tesla for having that software-based instrumentation system all in an iPad-style central screen, which, I don't know, maybe it's my age. A lot of younger people might think this just feels natural. For me, it is a distracting mess. So, having said that though, this is one of the better systems, I've got to say, and Tesla has improved it for the facelift with a second generation system. So it is a fast and smooth operation, and the displays are crisp and colourful. All that is obvious right from the get-go, and it's also fairly intuitive to use. There's a car icon here which gets you to the controls. The fact that you have to go into menus in the first place in order to change the exterior mirrors or the position of the steering wheel, in my mind, is a faff. When the Kia has simple, traditional and elegant switchgear instead. Two things that really annoy me about this car is the fact that you have to have the key. First of all, you've got to tap the pillar in order to enter and lock the car again once you leave. And you also have to tap the phone charger section here in order to start the vehicle. So once you do that and you put your foot on the brake, it lights up. And there's no gear lever. So instead, there's a slider here, up for forward, down for reverse, and you can actually set it so it automatically uses some sort of AI white magic to figure out whether you want to go in reverse, and I don't know, 9 out of 10 times it gets it right, but I've had it think I wanted to go forward when I wanted to go backwards and that sort of thing. So having said all that, I do like what the Model Y has become, in that it's got a much classier interior before, it's quieter with better quality materials and nicer finishes. That is obvious the moment you step inside. It's also very Spartan bare in here. So there's a sense of spaciousness. You get tons of storage. Like, I can't think of a vehicle that gives you more storage than a Model Y. And the seats are really good. In fact, I think that they're superior. These new seats are superior to the seats in the EV5. Vision, or at least forward vision, is excellent. I don't like the fact that there is no blind under the hot Australian sun. And even though, yes, this is UV treated and all that sort of stuff, you still feel that your scalp is getting a fry. This is surprisingly spacious back here as well. Quite a tall ceiling, and in the evening, this glass roof is glorious, I've got to say. And while the seats do feel a little bit firm and a little bit vinyl-y as well, they're actually nicely supportive. I'm surprised. Tesla now has electrified them, so if to adjust them, you don't quite get as much rake as you do in the Kia, but they are electrically operated, and you get the usual amenities, such as a, I think, superior cup holder armrest situation, USB ports, ventilation in the center, and a touchscreen. Now, this touchscreen not only provides climate control, it also allows you to have full access to the multimedia system up front. So you can switch to whatever music app you listen to, or podcasts. You can even watch Netflix. It's actually really good, and it makes the backseat experience feel more special than it did in the old Tesla. There's nothing really in terms of inhibiting foot room or leg room, so you still get that kind of vast sense of space, and it all seems better made and more nicely presented than before. One of the reasons why you might buy a Model Y over the EV5 is its vastly larger luggage capacity, and that's demonstrated in the fact that, well, if you take the parcel shelf off, and in fact you can put it away in here, it is vastly larger, like super duper larger. Check that out. That is just a massive amount of space. And in fact, in America, there is a 7-seater version where people sit facing backwards like they used to in old Volvo station wagons, but that doesn't fly in Australia. Anyway, the Tesla has got a couple of advantages over the EV5 in other areas as well. For instance, it's got a button here, so both seats fold down by themselves, but more importantly, they also fold back up again by themselves, and that is a real advantage. The Tesla, like the Kia, has a front bonnet, which the Americans like to call frunk. Anyway, this is a large cavity, and it's also big enough for you to put several of these backpacks, standard size backpacks, in. And it makes the Model Y quite the handy family flotsam and jetsam hauler. That's because the electric motor is by the rear axle. Tesla is notoriously secretive about revealing powertrain details, except that the base rear-wheel drive delivers enough power and torque for it to streak to 100 km an hour in 5.9 seconds for a 201 km top speed. Along with a 400-volt architecture, the Model Y features a multi-link independent rear suspension setup to help keep all that performance and pace in check. Except for providing the assurance of all-wheel drive in certain conditions, the Kia seems to squander its twin-motor advantage. With 160 kilowatts and 310 Nm of power and torque respectively, the front one does the main driving, backed up by a smaller 70 kilowatt 170 Nm rear mounted motor for extra traction. Yet the 300 kilogram weight penalty shows up in the EV5 GT line's markedly inferior power to weight ratio, resulting in being nearly half a second slower to 100 km an hour than the Model Y rear-wheel drive, as well as 16 km slower overall. So much for the theory. Is the Kia better to drive than the Tesla out in the real world? You've got to hand it to Tesla. They really listened to criticism and acted upon it, because the latest Model Y is a cracking car to drive compared to the EV5 anyway. We've taken off in chill mode, which is the more relaxed, less jerky way. But even in this kind of depowered setting, it's a very brisk, accelerating car with lots of performance and pep. I would say that most people would enjoy driving it in this setting, because it is a relaxed and really just an easy car to drive. I'm very happy with the steering. I think that Tesla has provided a sharper tune than what most SUV buyers might be used to, but you do quickly accustom, and when you do, you realize that this is an enjoyable, immersive and dynamic SUV experience. It tips into corners really quickly. You feel that you're part of the driving experience, and it's fun. I think it's a very good thing. But the biggest improvement, I would say, is the ride of this car. They've taken the hardness and the edge off the suspension, and as a result, it's much more comfortable, it's much more pliant. And compared to the EV5, it feels a lot tauter and better tied together. There is an underlying firmness to it still, but that is in line with the sporty and dynamic flavour of the way this car drives. And as a result, it's just more comfortable and more fun overall. So, big thumbs up to Tesla's obviously talented engineers, because they've turned this skateboard platform into something quite special. Also, I just want to point out that the amount of road noise is really reduced in this car. Now, you do get a parcel shelf, and that does quell tyre roar coming in from the rear, but also there's a lot of sound deadening. It's so obvious that they've worked really hard to improve the refinement of the Model Y. So that's another plus point. But my only dynamic complaint in this car would be the optional Autopilot Plus pack that this car has. It's the right name for it. It will be on the screen right now. I think that it needs to be better tuned to Australian conditions, because when I was driving with it on, it just felt a little bit too nervous, and it would switch off when it shouldn't have. For instance, it thought I was going to collide with something and it switched off or it slowed down. It just seemed a little bit paranoid. But other than that, Tesla has done a great job in updating this car in the way it drives, and it shows. If I was only buying these SUVs for their driving, it would be the Model Y. Additionally, there is a good amount of one-pedal braking available. You get the option of reduced or standard. So standard provides quite a bit of pressure, not to bring you to a full stop, while reduce allows you to drive this with a lot less braking interference. Either way, it shows Tesla's experience in building EVs. Over to the EV5. Except for one major item, everything about the Kia compared to the Tesla is more benign. And by that I mean it's just a little bit more isolated for the driver. So that's no bad thing, because the steering is light and easy, if not especially demanding. And the handling is very sure. Now, I've driven both the front-wheel drive and the all-wheel drive versions of the EV5, and even the single motor front-wheel drive has really good traction, while the all-wheel drive one just gives you that extra bit of reassurance on slippery roads. But also this model here, the GT line with dual motors, has got a lot of power. Maybe a little, it feels like it's got too much power given what the chassis can do. When just driving around in normal situations, it's fine. And when you need extra muscle, it's all there. It just comes on like a torrent. It's extremely muscular in the way this car goes, and thus it makes it a fast point-to-point car. My issue is that the suspension feels a little bit loose compared to the Tesla, and that manifests itself in quite a jittery and busy ride. The more I drove this car, particularly back to back from after the Tesla, the less I liked the way it soaked up bumps. There was just too much body movement, too much pitching, and it wasn't that pleasant. And I feel that this is probably the worst of all the Kia EVs, because Kia EVs have been really good, particularly the EV3 and the EV9 and the EV6 for that matter. They're just such a delightful cars dynamically. Aspects I like about the EV5 include paddle shifters that control the amount of regenerative braking. That's really good, because it gives you everything from just a light interference right down to almost full stopping, and also just the general refinement. One final thing is that there's too much road noise coming through, especially over coarse bitumen on the freeway. This car is not fitted with a rear parcel shelf. It looks like it would take one, but it didn't come with the car, and this is the top of the line model. And that means that there's just too much road droning kind of buzzing through. So it is a loud car. Other than that, the EV5 is a very simple and user-friendly car. There's nothing to frighten people who are in EVs for the first time. And if you own a Kia, everything is familiar and easy. But if you love driving, the Tesla Model Y is the pick.
The Kia seems to drop the ball when it comes to efficiency as well. Not only does its circa 40% larger battery only provide an extra 4 kilometers of WLTP range, but it also chews through the electricity faster to boot. The official combined energy consumption average is 21 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, which is in the ballpark for most similar sized all-wheel drive EV SUVs. But compared to the Leith Tesla's 13.9 kilowatt hour rating, that's nearly 50% more. On test, during a week of mild sunny weather, our trip computer screens indicated that the EV5
averaged 20.7 over the same roads and driving style, while the Model Y impressed us with 14.9. Plugging the Model Y at home for AC current using a normal socket requires over 30 hours compared to around 40 hours for the Kia due to the latter's much larger battery, though about 10 hours is about right for both with an optional 7 kilowatt wall box. For your DC fast charging needs, a common 50 kilowatt outlet for a 10 to 80% top up needs about 60 minutes in the Model Y and around 70 minutes in the EV5. Another area where the two are broadly similar is in safety, though the Tesla, which has long scored 5 stars across the board like the EV5, has yet to be tested in Australia in its new Juniper guise. Both have the prerequisite levels of ADAS from AEB and lane support systems to adaptive cruise control, but only the Tesla offers the option of semi-self-driving tech, though this is only operational in certain conditions, and in our experience, it can be a little bit glitchy. You can read more about the EV5 and Model Y safety in my written comparison at carsguide.com.au. The EV5 clobbers the Model Y when it comes to ownership, with a 7-year unlimited kilometre warranty and 8 years of roadside assistance if servicing is carried out by an authorised Kia dealer. Service intervals are every 12 months or 15,000 kilometres, though it appears no Kia EV can be had with Kia's cap price servicing offers. The Tesla, meanwhile, offers a measly 4-year or 80,000 kilometre warranty and only half the amount of roadside assistance time, which is poor form in Australia. Plus, the Model Y service intervals are condition-based, meaning that the car informs the owner when one is due, and there is no fixed price servicing either. However, Tesla does recommend certain items like filters, brakes and tyres be checked regularly depending on usage. And as it turns out, the warranty is a good reflection on the overall results because, objectively, the Kia EV5 is the better family car. Simply because it's easy to use, it's certainly more affordable across the range, and it has the normality and the user-friendliness that I think most people would want in this sort of car. But if you're an enthusiast, the Tesla Model Y Juniper is undoubtedly the pick of the two because it is a more fun car to drive, it's also more comfortable, more refined, and more efficient than what the Kia actually is. So they both have their pros and cons. If I had to make the choice, I would probably go for the Kia EV6, stretch to that, or if you can't, buy the cheaper EV3 because that's brilliant over these two cars. But objectively, it's the EV5 that wins. Anyway, you can read the full comparison at carsguide.com.au, and as always, thanks for watching.